Hello everyone. Hello everyone in the amazing Telegram thread. Thank you guys for coming in here. Um, wow, here we go with one of my amazing go-to BFFs, John Wheeler.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, hello everyone. So, John, here in my Telegram thread, we've been having a great time just exploring a bunch of these topics. And this topic is 3 days of creating your big ask future, which still is so fun for me. Because you even had this title when we were just chatting, and you're talking about like your big ass future, right? Like, but your big ask future. And when we really started looking at, even for me, like when I was sharing this around, it's like, have you been wishing or have you been praying for something? Have you been wanting something different for your life? Because this all applies to everything. That's what I love talking about to everyone. Like, this isn't just for your business. Yes, it's for your business, but it's also for your business, your body, your relationship, your money, your future.
Hmm.
So how much do we think that we're in our head, like thinking, oh, I'd like to have this or I'd like to have that, wanting something different? And we've been lucky enough to explore this topic a lot lately. Like, is your wishing working? You're like, well, I really like, you look at other people and you're like, I'd like to have that, but it's not for me, or, something different. And so what we really looked at this topic is like really breaking it down because we only have 3 days, right? And so, gosh, would you guys even be willing to play with us with this and just explore with these 3 days? And we really looked at like day one. So here we are, day one. And it's getting clear on what you would really like to create for your future, right? Like when we've been talking about this, if you're looking at, we only have 3 days. So we're giving you, you know, 3 days of this. And first of all, do you even know what you want?
Right. And when you said it too, when you're talking about wishing, it's like, if you just keep wishing for things, wishing to me has that energy of things being outside of you. Like
Yeah, that you could never have,
you
but you're
can
like,
see it,
yeah.
you can perceive it, but you can't quite touch it. It's like it's not necessarily something that you actually think you can have. It's that thing that you have in the back of your head, like, well, it would be nice if I had that.
Mhm.
And yes, it would be nice if you could have it. And are you actually asking, big part of these 3 days, what are you actually asking for? And that's the part when Becky and I have been chatting, looking at doing these 3 days together too, is
Mhm.
actually getting clear on what it is that you are asking for. Because more than likely, if you think you're asking for something and you don't yet have it, or it's not starting to show up, somewhere you may not actually be asking.
Yeah, or you're like, oh, that would be great to have, but do you actually want that? And really, so what I loved about this, and to break it down even a little bit more, we've really like, what do you want?
Uh-huh.
What would you like in your life? Like, what would you like to add? Like, if you're the creator of your life and you can have anything, like right now in this 10 seconds, so you only have 10 seconds to choose, what are you choosing? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like sometimes there's a little bit of an energy there, but if you really have to be like, hey, here you got a genie, ask, you can have whatever you want. Before you can actually ask and before you can actually take action, what are you clear on what you want? So, John, how do we get clear?
Well, the first question, even that's popping in my head too, is the thing that you think you want, what do you want it for?
Mm.
Like, is it the natural desire to have it and like the sense of how your life would be different if you have it? Or is it the right thing? or like someone else has it and you've decided that their life is great, so now you have to have what they had, because then that's how you have a great life. What if you could have a great life for you right now with whatever's showing up? And it's like a trick, because we always look for, it's again that wishing, we always look for what we'd like to have, but do you actually look at what you already have and acknowledge what you already have so that what you have gets greater? And what can you add to that? It's like whatever you have now, what could you add in addition to it? So that's part of where I would start, is getting clear on what do you already have that you have asked for, and have you acknowledged
What
that
you
you have it?
created. Yeah, like
Yeah,
what you actually have right now and what you've created. Because I know
right.
we've talked about this a lot. Like everything that you have in your life right now is a choice of some sort. And I know that's a lot for people, but like if you really looked at like, hey, what is your what's in your bank account? Like what does your business look like? Or like if you're coming in here and you're like, well, I don't have a business yet, that's fine too. Because you have a relationship. Like these are all creations. So everything right now that you have, if you really got present with it, what have you created?
Mhm.
And I do get like I've been reading the Write Riches for You book. And there's something about, and there's one of the chapters where Mr. Gary Douglas, and if you don't know who he is the founder of Access Consciousness. He's like, you have to get clear on what you actually would like to have.
Mhm.
And, you know, like if everyone's like, well, that's a big responsibility, but like, what if I ask for this and then I change my mind? Well, you can change your mind, but are you actually clear on what you'd like to have? And
So
yeah,
you asked a little bit ago, where do you start? Here's
yeah.
something where I would recommend starting. Make an actual list. And I know I've heard even Dr. Dane,
So home
co-founder of
play.
Access.
And we all
Yes.
talk about this, but here we
Home
go,
play.
John. Home play already 2
Actually
minutes in.
take a piece of paper and a writing utensil and write down, or you can do it in your phone app if you want, but there's something to me about actually physically doing the writing. But actually look at what is it that you'd like to ask for? Like, how much money would you like? I know that's Becky and I have had a lot of conversation about this. What amount of money do you need in the bank account to never have a money problem again? Write down what you're asking for. Or, if it's something with bodies, like what is it that you'd like to ask for with your body? What is it that you like to ask for with your business? What is it you like to ask for in your relationships? What is it that you like to break down your life into bite-sized pieces? Like when we look at it and say, well, what are you asking for in life? Or creating your big ask future. That can be
Yep.
intimidating. Future is a big thing, and it's not necessarily something you can put into words of where your life is going to be beyond a certain time period. But you have a sense of something that you'd like to have. So attempting to put some of that energy into an actual word for you to comprehend what you're asking for, but not from the point of limiting it. Like this isn't about you write down what you're asking for and that's the only way it can show up. Like, okay, with money, for example, say you want to have $100,000 in your bank account. What things now, if you acknowledge that as an ask, now what actions can you take? Which will be probably one of the other 2 days, I'm sure. That's a topic all on its own.
Yeah.
But actually starting with that piece of, okay, so for me, with money, I'd like to ask for $100,000. Cool.
Yeah. And so it's like, hey, what do I have right now?
Right.
Because I think it's really getting clear of like where you're at.
Yeah. And look at what you're writing down as your ask. And is it something that you actually believe you can choose? Because and I've noticed this with myself too, if you make your ask the right ask, which is usually bigger than what you actually will have, then you have another way to judge yourself, because now you have this big ask and you're not creating it. So now you get to judge yourself for not creating the big ask, which is another way to get out of that judgment. Acknowledge what you have created. Yeah. Start there. And so when you write down your ask, also have a look at it. Is this something that you really desire to have? Because if you're doing the right thing, chances are it's not going to be that easy for you to create it, because there's an ease in choosing what works and choosing, what's honoring of you where you are today, not necessarily always where you want to be. People with this thing about future, people always look to the future as this like thing down the road.
Someday, but it's always like in this, it's like winning the lottery. Someday I'll have this, or maybe someday I'll have that. But like, is that actually what you really want? Or is that somebody else's desire? Because I do know, like, and I'm sure all of you on here, like when you're like, I want that, or like, I'll have that. When you have that like really clear, concise thing, you create it.
Mm-hmm. And in those moments, you actually have the clarity of the energy of the thing. Because that's the thing people do too. You look at what you see, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to have that. But then you don't actually acknowledge the energy behind it. So then, the person who looks like, I keep using money to me, which is funny. So hopefully this is a contribution to those of you in this group.
I think that's a great topic, because there's a lot of people that are, money is a big topic, relationship, and then bodies. So like money is a big one. So use money.
And so like, if you look at someone you've decided has money or looks like they have money, but in truth, they have like a really screwed up way that they are with money. And then you look at it and go, oh, they have it figured out. I'm going to have that, without the acknowledgement of the energy. Then you start duplicating and copying that energy. And then you're going, why is my money flows all screwed up? Well, because you are actually looking at the image the person is creating, not necessarily the energy. So getting clear for me is looking beyond what you see and looking at, what do you actually know with this? So like when you're looking at what you're asking for and you're gaining clarity, another place, so acknowledging, and what is it that you actually know? Like when you're asking for something, again, what are you asking it for?
Can I say that? What do you know? Because that's what we're really getting on this topic, to really dive in. Not a lot of people touch on this topic. What do you know? Do you know in what you know? Like, do you actually know what you truly desire? Or are you like mimicking everyone around you's desires?
Right. Which is where I started at the beginning of this. You start looking at your ask, what are you asking for it for? Like the thing that you want, the thing you desire, what is actually feeding that? Is it from choice? Like you actually desire to have it? Or is it the thing that you're supposed to want?
That's the piece, John, there. Like, so when you have this list, do I actually desire this? Or am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to want this? Because that's what everybody else asks for. That's a great piece.
And again, that's getting clarity. And that's getting clear for you. Like what you were saying from the Right Riches book, that's actually getting clear for you what you actually desire. Because how many of the things that you think you're asking for because you're supposed to, not because you're actually asking.
Yeah.
So what are you asking for?
Yeah, totally. And this might sound like Dr. Seuss, like this tongue-tied thing, but I think, how much can we like really keep saying, are you really clear on what you know? Like, because nobody teaches you this. And like, if you're in this Telegram thread, like we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but we're going to keep talking about it in different ways, like in a different, like even situations in a different language. Because it's like, nobody tells you or even shows you ever that that you actually already are everything that you've ever wanted. You know what you know. Like, I was a big person growing up where my throwaway sentence was always like, hey, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. And so the first step too is there's that home play of like looking at what John just said and is like, is this what I actually desire, or is this somebody else's desire? And then the next one is be totally present when you're asking yourself. And if you're like, I don't know what I want, take I don't know and throw it out the door.
And Gary, I just heard on a telecall, Gary's telecalls he just did about stupidity. I've never heard him say it. And I was like, oh, why are none of us using it? If you've ever been in a class with him and someone asks him a question that he doesn't have an answer for, you never hear Gary say, I don't know. He literally says, I don't have an answer to that. And he said in this call, I've been trying to get all of you to say for years, instead of I don't know, that you stop validating that you don't know something and you start saying, I don't have an answer, because you do know, you just don't have an answer. And I was like,
yeah, or you
so
haven't
replace
taken
it.
that next step to be like, oh, like, well, okay, well, I wonder what I do know on this.
Yeah.
And I've had people ask me questions that I don't actually always have the information for right away, because this is about getting clear. And I'll say, wow, that is a great question. I wonder, let me ask that a little bit more. Like, let me be with
Mhm.
that question and see, because like these things, all of a sudden, it's not a cognitive, like you get these, answers. But for me, I'll be in the shower. And when I ask these questions, sometimes like all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, what about this? And I'm like, I do know.
Yeah.
I've created so many businesses with that, where I've had so many amazing people come up to me and like, hey, can you do that? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, no clue. But by being like, yes, and because I trust that I will know when I ask these questions. The information comes from the weirdest ways. I've had people come up to me and help me. I phone a friend. A lot of times I'll call John and be like, what do you know about this? And it's not like John knows everything either, but he's like, oh, that's a great question. And then all of a sudden you start talking, have these conversations, and then you get the information. So the I don't know takes away the disempowerment that you do to yourself, or like, what is that?
It's an invalidation of you.
Invalidation of
Every
you.
time you say I don't know, you're invalidating the fact that you actually do. The one thing that's true for everyone is they do know what's true for them.
That
You've never been taught to trust you and to know that. Like, most of the time, what you're taught is to go against that and to think, like,
well,
put
because you're
other people
wrong.
before you.
There's
Right.
like this inherent thing that you don't know, you're dumb,
Right.
you're wrong as a
And
human.
especially when you're a kid, your parents know more than you. You should just do what your parents said, because they're smarter and older and
Everybody knows
wiser.
more than you because you're young.
And so
At
you
that
get
point.
that when you're young, and then you hold on to it. But every time you say I don't know, you're invalidating the fact that you do.
Well, John, then how do we acknowledge that we know what is true for us? Because
Yeah.
what's true for me isn't true for you.
Right. Right. And that, and even with, again, like with that too, when you ask, like, the appropriate, like, the thing that I really wanted to say was, I don't know. But so for me, what I do in that, like, that situation where you asked me that and I didn't have an immediate answer, the first thing I wanted to say was, I don't know. But you noticed I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
caught myself and I went, lies. So what? So then to me, it's asking the question, okay, so what do I know with this? So, like, what do I know about how do you get to a place of knowing what you know? For me, it's a muscle, but
It
it's
is. It's
not
a muscle
allowing
and a
yourself.
choice. Like
Yeah.
what we've been talking about. It really is a muscle and it's a choice, and it's always willing to be in the question.
And getting clear what comes out of your mouth.
And getting clear. Here we're back to the like day one.
Like, what are you actually, and I think you talked about this on one of your other series too, but with, like, what are you saying to the world? Like, how do you want to show up in the world? How do you want the world to see you? But, like, what are you literally saying? Like, what actually physically comes out of your mouth? But what are you saying in here? Because we think that, if I don't say it out loud, it isn't spoken. False. How many conversations have you had in your head? You crazy people. I talk to myself all the time in my head. That is still speaking. It's just not verbal. Like, it's not coming out of your mouth to another person to hear it. But
Yeah.
do you hear you?
Yeah.
So getting clear on it. Like, I caught myself in that exact moment when Becky asked me that question, where I went to go, oh, I don't know how to help people get to that. I don't know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like actually calling yourself a liar when you lie to yourself. Like, I don't know. Okay, so And a fun question you could play with, or a process, if you want to run some access consciousness processing, you can ask, um, everywhere I've decided I don't know about this, just run and create it. Or anywhere I've decided I don't know anything.
Mhm.
How many of you actually think that you don't know anything, or that what you do know isn't valuable? So what's the point in knowing it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Guilty.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the gift in what you do actually know? And if you actually get clear on that, it's like with this thing of asking, if you get clear on what you do know, you might actually get more clear on what you're asking for. Because if you're asking for all these things, you have no idea why you're asking for them, then, why are you going to create them?
Well, then what's actually showing up for you? You can still create because we're like nonstop
You're
creators.
always creating. You
We're
just don't
always
always
creating.
like it.
You could either be creating, you could be creating or like wonderful things, or you can be creating crap. I'm always, I'm a great creator. I'm a magnificent creator. I've always been. But what are you creating? Because you're non-stop creating. And so, well, I would also say, John, the one piece is getting to know what you know is that and I've talked to I would talk to you I would talk to my kids. We all have people in this reality too would call it this gut instinct.
Mhm.
When something just doesn't feel right or something isn't right, then it doesn't work for you. But how much have we went against of well, maybe I shouldn't do that, but everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it anyways. When that first thing that pinged you is nope, probably it's not a great idea. So we actually are born with this kind of meter of knowing what we know. And the
Mhm.
more you acknowledge that of what comes up for you when you have people ask you questions, or you take job offers, or maybe you find certain relationships or meet new people, you already have this little call it intuition of what it will create. But mainly I think we've been taught to ignore that,
Yeah. Well, and we're taught to override it. That's what,
to
when we talk
override
about
it. Thank you. To
awareness,
override it.
you have that thing. It's called your awareness. And then you override it because you look at what everyone else is doing. And I'm going to go off script for 1 second. You also have this lovely meter for your awareness. It's called your body. Hence, things like gut instincts,
Mhm.
or a lot of things people teach, like how do you know something or whatever. You'll notice for a lot of people, muscle testing, like those sorts of things, it's the
Yeah.
body. You have an awareness, and then your body gives you lovely little hints about your
Mhm.
awareness. And then a lot of times we override them. But when you feel sick to your stomach about a choice, that's your body giving you awareness. So it's like, all right, cool. So what am I aware of? And then it goes back
Yeah.
again to that question, what do you know? What are you aware of with this? And does it match, again, looking at what creating your future and what you're asking for, does that energy that you're aware of in that moment match the future that you're asking for? And if
Yeah.
the energy doesn't match, you can still choose it if you want to. Just acknowledge again that it doesn't match what you're asking for, and you're making a choice that may or may not go in that direction. And if you choose it anyways, don't make yourself wrong. So many people do that. Well, I knew it was heavy and I chose it anyways. Okay, cool. What awareness did you gain in choosing it? I've recently had a
Yeah.
situation like that where I was like, yeah, I totally cut off what I was aware of with it. But now I have the information. I know what it feels like to cut off my awareness, and I will not choose that again. So it's like all of those things can create for you if you don't go into judgment. So it's like,
Well, yeah,
what?
because here's the big thing that everyone, that's on here, and this might not apply to everybody, but how many of us instantly go to you're wrong? So you make a choice and you're like, I made the wrong choice, or I don't know what I know, I'm wrong. And so if you're willing to look at what John just said, you might not be wrong. There might be something else here, But if you can go back and look at every choice that you've judged yourself for as wrongness, that it actually gave you an awareness that you didn't have before. So you're like, oh yeah, yeah, that didn't work or didn't work. And then, so then you kind of like navigate
Mhm.
different steps into the future. Like, then you have the beginning of knowing what you know. Like I personally had several businesses. I have made millions of dollars. I've had several business partners where I was like, hey, that probably wasn't a great choice. Made millions, lost millions, went bankrupt, made millions, went bankrupt. But each time has got me to a place of like, well, not I would never do that again, but to the place of like, oh, okay, so this worked, this kind of didn't work. And it helps you navigate yourself to a different place of, if I would have listened to myself, if I would have, there were signs for me that this was working or this wasn't working, that now I know when that pops up, of getting really, really clear
Mhm.
on what would I like to create. And I personally do know, and I'd love to just throw this in here, is that anytime that you're looking at creating your life, like if we're talking about having a business or making millions of dollars, or we're talking about relationships or anything like that, as soon as you ask other people, what would you do in this situation? You take yourself out of the equation. Now, it's wonderful to have conversations. And if you have somebody that can actually ask you questions, now that's brilliant. But I do know, I'm going to give you an example of one of our businesses. My husband, like we were like skyrocketing. And then a person came in and he started telling my husband how he would do it and wouldn't do it this way. And my husband started navigating a different way. Well, what ended up happening for my husband is that it was no longer his business. It was no longer like his ask. It was now this person's ask. And the whole thing kind of like, well, it crumbled.
Mhm.
Because, and so for me, my awareness was in the whole thing is like your business in your future must come from you knowing what you know and where you would like to go. As soon as you step into somebody else's world, you are now like, it's like jumping tracks, like paths or something. Like you're going down your path and they're like, well, I'll hop on your sidewalk and go down your trail because like you said, this is better. But as soon as you do that, you're on somebody else's vision of what they would like to have in the world, not you.
Mhm.
And if you're able to be really, really clear, like, and go where you want to go, like Elon Musk, let's use him for example. And I'm not saying he's wonderful or he's not. He's a visionary. He goes where people have never been. He creates things that people have no idea because he is like, this is where I'm going. I'm going places that people cannot even define. They don't even have words for it yet, but this is somehow, I know I'm following a direction of what I get, that I could create something beyond this reality for a future. Knowing what you know and not getting distracted.
Mhm.
There's power in being you, right? Like there's this, gosh, I was reading it somewhere here. Oh, I found it earlier. I was reading, having a financial reality that works for you means getting really intimate with what you truly desire to create.
Mhm.
Right. And when you get intimate with what you really truly desire to create, that's not even about the money. It's not about the relationship. It's not about your, the body you'd like to create. But what happens is that when you're really truly intimate, you become clear on your future and those things all follow.
Right. And that's actually creation of future.
And we are talking about, like, what is your big ask future? So when we're talking about creating a life that's like you wouldn't want a vacation from, like, like I love to say like this kind of for an example, like I could die tomorrow. And like, what am I creating? What is happening right now? Like, am I like thriving? We all think we have all this time, but do we? And if we don't, like, creating your big ask future now. What does that look like for you today? It's not like, oh, someday I'm going to have that. Like someday I'm going to create that, or someday I'll be this, or someday I'll do this, and someday I'll get clear.
Mhm. When it's a piece, like, okay, say I'll use the example again. Say you want $100,000 in your bank account. You more than likely will not just wake up tomorrow with 100K in your bank. I mean, what would it take?
What would I say? Yeah.
But chances are, for most people, that would be a level of a
Receiving.
miracle that people, and a level of receiving most won't have. And it's not about necessarily, okay, so I would like this. This is my bigger, goal, target, whatever you want to put out there. My bigger ask is this amount of money. That's wonderful. And when you go to bed today, or wake up in the morning, or whatever time zone it is for you when you watch this, when you actually start to wake up and start your day, what are you asking for? Because that is, again, the creation of future. People keep putting the future off, like someday, someday, someday. But there's two parts of this that I always look at, and it's all about choice. Like what Becky was saying, it can be really confronting to look at your life and say, okay, everything that is in my life today is a result of the choices that I've made.
Mhm.
That can be so freaking infuriating. Trust me, I know. And it's also a huge level of power if you acknowledge that. Because if you created your life as it is today with the choices that you made, do you think you could make a different choice today to create a different tomorrow? That's how you create future. It's like every choice you make today creates the future that you have in the next 10 seconds. So if you're choosing in every 10 seconds, and this is one of the tools of access consciousness, living in 10-second increments, the idea in that is to get you to a place where you are present with every choice you make in every 10 seconds. Because when you're that present in your life, it's a lot harder to jump into someone else's world, like Becky was talking about. But it's also harder to lose that energy of what you'd like to create as your life. Because every 10 seconds, you're checking in and you're a part of that rhythm, or that heartbeat, or that thrum of the future that you're aware of. So with clarity, one of the things when we're talking about this with this one is like getting clear. What if one of the lies that you've bought is that you don't have it? Like, you're here and you're breathing. You join this
You've
Telegram
made it this
group.
far.
You're listening to this video. It's like, is your life exactly today how you would like it? Some of you maybe, some of you maybe not. And it's like, okay, cool. So you've got it. You've made it this far. And like people always say too, I don't, like when they look at, I don't know. I don't know what I know. Okay, well, do you know when you need to go to the restroom? Do you just sit in your chair and use the restroom in your chair, or do you get up and go to the bathroom? You go to your bathroom, So you do know, or like not to walk out in front of a car, for example, or hey, there's a snake there. Maybe I shouldn't step in front of that snake. It's not a great choice. Or hey, there's a tornado outside. I probably shouldn't go stand beside it. You have those things. So what if you actually acknowledged what you do know, but also acknowledge those areas in your life where you are clear. And if you're like, how do I know if I'm clear in an area of my life? Here's the trick. The areas of your life where you have no problems and it's not hard is where you have clarity. That thing that's so easy for you, like for me, talking to people, super easy. One of the places I'm clear is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where am I having more difficulty in things? For me personally, money. So guess what that means I have to do when I look at money? I have more work to do on being clear of what am I thinking? What am I saying? What am I choosing with money?
Yeah.
And then when I'm
And
talking,
what you
I'm just
said
like, this
earlier,
is what I'm doing.
John, like what lies have you bought with money?
Yeah.
Like, like what lies have you bought, like with your family's lie, like what lies have you bought around money? Because technically, like if you look at money, I don't have any in front of me, but like, well, this is money. I have a credit card. This is money, kind of, like there's so many different forms of like things you could call money, but this could go away. Dollar bills, if I had a dollar bill in my hand, like, I mean, what could I do with it? Like eat it?
Mm.
No. Like there's really what money is an exchange of services that just happens to become in a form, so that's easier for you to say, well, hey, here's a dollar bill, here it goes this. Like everything is an exchange of form with money. So where have we bought like the lies of money? And once again, like this day one is really about getting clear and like what lies have you bought? Like what is true for you with all of these different areas of your life. And I think what John brought up too, and I love to say this too, is that you're the creator of your life. Everything that you're thinking, everything that you're saying, everything that is, coming up for you is a creation. So what are you saying to yourself daily? Like, what are those thoughts that maybe you haven't like really tapped into and haven't gotten clear on,
Mhm.
that are being like the mind chatter? So what are those? Because those are a creation. What you're telling yourself is a creation of your future.
So what are you creating?
So what are you creating? Are you clear? And I think like these are quick. These are like little
I
quick
know
deep
this one. I'm like,
dives.
I don't know any. This one feels very long, so we'll see. But
We'll see. And I'm really excited about tomorrow. I'm really excited about the next day. Day one is really like, do you even know what you'd like to truly have? And is that your ask, or is it like something we see on TV, people winning the lottery, da, 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 because I personally know if it's really truly something I want. How many of you have had something you're like, oh, I want that? You can easily create it. Then there's all these other things you're like, I want that, but like, why didn't it show up? Because did you really want it? Was it yours? Or, like, so tip for today, let's really get clear
yeah,
on what you're doing. Where's your time going? Where are you spending your time? Where's your energy?
I just laughed when you said it because I'm looking at. I made someone mad once because I said
Once, John, once?
yes, at least once that I can remember. Like this person was really angry with me because I said that if people truly desire to have something in their life, they will get it. And they wanted to argue with me. No, money, this, that. And I said, not true. Has there ever, if you are being brutally honest with yourself, is there ever anything that you've wanted to have in your life that you did not get?
Yeah. Right.
Or those things that you really desired, do you do whatever it takes to get it? Or do you, it's like if you aren't willing to do whatever it takes to have it, do you truly desire to have it? Or what are you asking for it for? That sounds like a really weird question, but what are you asking for it for?
Yeah.
What's it going to give you to have it? And what are you losing by not having it,
Yeah.
And
So
that's probably more for later also. I have a
well,
lot to say. I'm realizing.
this is my favorite, like playing with this. This has been so fun. And we gave you some home play in the beginning. John said, do a list.
Yeah, make a list of what it is that you actually would like to ask for with different areas of your life. And you can choose those areas. Like
Yeah.
I always look at the big ones people usually have: money, bodies, relationship,
Yeah.
business. Um,
And then is that really yours? So get
yeah.
clear.
And what parts of those are yours and how much of those things. And you can even do another column. Like I like to do columns like, okay, here's all the things I'm asking for. And I like to look at, okay, what have I decided? Why have I decided I can't have it? Like a
Mm,
list of all the reasons I'm not allowed to have the thing. And then a lovely question is it true? Is it true that I can have these things? Or is it true that I'm asking for them? Or,
yeah.
am I asking because I want it, or am I asking because I'm supposed to? Like the thing that getting clear the thing that you say that you desire in your life, do you truly desire it?
Yeah.
And only you know the answer to that question.
Yes. And I'm going to leave you guys also with this. Is your ask in your clarity big enough for your life? Does it make you uncomfortable? Are your asks making you uncomfortable? Are they big enough? Are they even yours? Like if you could ask for anything, and if you look at your list right there, it's like if you could ask for anything, like, is it big enough for you? Does it make you uncomfortable? Because if it doesn't, we're going to look at that in the next couple days. Right?
What a lovely wedgie.
Yes. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you. And let us know if you have any questions. Right? Bye, everyone.